Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on culture and more specifically on why culture is that important for a DevOps organization or for organization moving to adopt DevOps principles. So thanks all for joining. I see more folks popping in, so let us slowly start and get to the introductions. So my name is Dimitri. I'm a founding member of the DevOps Agile Skills Association with this organization for quite a long time, and I'll do a little bit more introduction when we go along. And I'm very excited to be here today with Rajat Talari. He's the founder and CEO of Transcend. And I met Rajat many times in India, and this is a picture made at a culture cafe in New Delhi. No better place to meet a guy like Rajat, but he's an expert in organizational culture, uh, behavior. He's an author and an extremely great person to work together with. So what we are going to do today is um, is talk about culture. What is it? And and understand the importance of it. So, what is the issue here? So, if you look at recent reports, you find that about 70% to 84% of all the transformations basically fail. And if you look at those reports, you find many reasons for failures. However, if you look at the 60% that actually succeed, and you look at what did they do well, it's actually they managed and addressed how people think, how they interact, collaborate, and work. So in essence, they spend time on their people, on behavior, and culture, etc. And this insight, this acknowledgement, also for us being a DASA, gives us an additional spike in demand towards our programs that are very triggered or triggered towards developing the right culture, such as the DevOps Coach program, but also the other programs that we will discuss as well today. So it's not nothing new because we from DASA are already talking about culture, the importance of culture, that it's DevOps is more than pure technology, it's about people. So, and this slide is actually already a couple of years old. So, but having the numbers in our hand makes it easier to have a more practical discussion about the importance of it. And welcome as well. I still see folks coming in. So welcome and welcome to the show. So about DASA. So we are a global community of about 300, 350 training partners. We have end user organizations around the world using our body of knowledge, our competence models, our competence scans, our certification programs to get their employees and teams on the right levels. We're very proud to work with a global ambassador plan and program and a new influencer program that we recently announced. We are a global community of experts who like to share knowledge, push the boundaries, and help us and each other move forward in our individual working lives. We meet a lot, and due to COVID, it's more difficult, but it's very good to also meet online in these kinds of sessions. But at July 18, so in a couple of weeks, we will also be on the ground virtually in India, and I'll share more about that, and we hope to meet you there as so what we developed is a competence model and 7 certification schemes. And today, because we're talking about culture, I think are the most important program that is there to enable and instill the right culture is our DASA DevOps Coach program. And with Rajat today, he's also one of the key facilitators with a specialization on the cultural part. We can focus on that one as well. Yes, so where would you start looking for? mean, it's about IT transformation, and it is about the leadership which you need to get along. We'll not spend too much time on this topic today, but for those who are interested, also in our broader leadership program, just reach out to me or one of the DASA folks, and we'll get it. We'll get more details to you. But what is interesting is that knowing that only 60% of these successful transformations is about the human side, is about the people side. You find that many of them see the DevOps coach as a kind of savior, an expert in your organization who can actually talk from a level of trust, change how people work and approach things, have them work together, have them adopt the right principles, make them aware, and that's the reason why there's a DevOps coach is being rapidly adopted around the globe to support those organizations who see this same need as well. Yeah, how does it fit together? Might look a little bit technical, but from DASA's perspective, we are not a pure play certification by give me an exam and I'll put it on my resume. It's much more than that, because we are built on 12 competencies, 6 principles, extremely powerful principles. Those 2 things were the first things we developed back in 2015. And those 2 things, they actually define 4 areas: the culture, the organization, the process, and the automation. And today, we are going to focus on the culture. So with that, Rajat, let me also look at the time. It's a brief introduction, so we are 10:08. So with that, Rajat, welcome again formally. I'm not able to see you, unfortunately, but I know the audience is. So please welcome, and let's go for your first story.
Great. So I hope everyone can hear me. Dimitri, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Great. So thanks, and welcome everyone to our session on culture and how it impacts the DevOps organization. I'm Rajat Tiwari with about 30 years of experience. Last 10 years, I have been engaging with more than 50 organizations in the area of culture transformation, behavioral change, and leadership development. And this is a passion for me. Hope I'm able to transfer some of that passion to you today in these 20 minutes. So culture, culture is something that all of us are aware of. We have heard about it, we understand it to some extent, but then do we really truly have a full understanding of all the dimensions of this aspect, and how can we shape it, change it from a DevOps organizational perspective? Now, before I start off to explain this concept, a very large concept to be explained in 20 minutes, but yes, we'll take a stab at it. Let me look at sharing a story with you. So this is about 2 small fish who are moving around in the river, young fish having fun, jumping around, talking to each other. And while they're moving around, old fish passes by. And the old fish looks at them, smiles at them, and says, "Hey, young ones, how is the water today?" The young ones smile back and they move on. A little ahead, one of them turns to the other and says, "Hey, what is water?" Now, the interesting thing here is that though they are living in water, they're surrounded by water, they are not fully aware of it. And this is something very similar that happens to us as related to culture. We feel we know it, but it's so deeply embedded in us. It's so much into habit, into assumed truths, beliefs, and opinions that we miss out a large part of it. It's, like an elephant in the room. Everybody is sensing it, nobody's talking about it. And we are like the 5 blind men. We are looking at different parts of it and making our own assumptions of what it really is. So that's gives you a flavor of what culture really is for us, and it kind of stresses the importance of us needing to understand this thing before we are able to make successful, sustained changes in organizations. So Dimitri, I request you to move to the next slide.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this Peter Drucker's famous statement, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," has been used and reused and spoken about. But do we truly understand this, from that aspect? Because culture seems to be something which is standing at the back, invisible, not really out there. And how much does it really impact various things that's happening to us? Here again, I'll say that culture, I would talk about in a more broader sense. Culture is not something just limited to organizations. It's about family. It's about social groups. It's about any group of people coming together. And when you look at an organization which is not able to sell its new products, or there's rapid attrition happening, or a family in which there's a divorce, or a child who is getting into bad habits, you can make out that it's a misaligned culture which is slowly eroding that group, which is slowly impacting that group in a certain way. So, it's a very large phenomenon which is happening in the background, very dynamic, impacting us all the time, and it impacts everything that's in the organization. I think let's move to the next slide.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can be assured of the fact that a lot of study has been done around the importance of culture. How does culture impact us? The negative aspect of culture is lack of engagement, attrition, disconnection, people losing their motivation. And the positivities very obviously are more productivity, more return to the client or to the customer, and of course, a more stronger and sustained organization. So culture clearly impacts us, and the challenge for leaders and challenge for even middle managers is how do we shape and structure a culture that adds to it, that provides that drive to the whole change that we're trying to bring in that organization. Okay, moving on. You can move to the next slide, Dimitri. Yeah.
Yes.
So now that we have broadly kind of spoken about culture and given you a sense, let's get it a little closer to your workplace. All of you are working somewhere. I mean, you got a organization, there's a hierarchy, you are taking decisions, managing conflicts, you're doing your work. Now here, some of the questions that you could actually ask yourself to get a sense of what is the culture in your places. Do I feel valued in my organization? Am I engaged in my work and enjoying it? Are there silos in my organization, between functions, between teams? Do we work as teams rather than groups? Very interesting question. People are brought together. They're supposed to be working as a team, but they're actually thinking as individuals, and they're pushing their own agenda while they're a part of a team. So are we really a team or are we a group? And of course, am I struggling with value conflicts? Value conflicts are conflicts of values between the organization and yourself, which is very common. And we are struggling with them a lot of times. So some of these very interesting questions that you could ask yourself, and which could give you a sense of how aligned that culture is in your organization. How is it aligned to the strategy, the objectives, the mission and vision of the organization, and how much is it aligned to your own personal values? So here I'll take a pit stop and I'll request some of the participants to share with us on the chat box. I'm looking at the chat box, and to share with me on any question that is a highlight for you, and any question that you have asked yourself here, and you sense that this is somewhere you could make a sense of your culture, or somewhere where you've seen that the answer is not positive, or it's a challenge for you. So the attendees, it will be great if anyone could respond on the chat box on this, because here I have intended to bring it closer to your workplace, right there next to you, so that you get a sense of how this impacts you.
Yeah.
So anyone who is you could share with us on the chat box. Okay. Anyway, you can and always, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, can you give some examples from your, let's say, you've been coaching and working with leaders and middle managers, I mean, and with so many folks around these topics. Can you give some examples as well, how when people felt a kind of disalignment with their own cultural
Yeah, yeah,
value, I mean, what would they typically do?
yeah.
Or what?
So yeah, absolutely. So I mean, for example, you're somebody who's a very ethical person and believes that we should not be giving any bribes. He goes to an organization and he realizes that some of the underlying assumptions are that it's okay to give bribes, and he's being pushed in a very implicit way to look at that aspect. Now that is a value conflict.
Excellent.
Or
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, missed you.
yeah,
Go
so and or if you're doing something which you feel is important for the organization, but you're not getting that appreciation
ahead.
because your boss is looking at something different
Yeah, yes.
than what you're doing,
Yeah.
so you're not feeling
And
valued.
you're coming in, Rajat. So the one of them is, can culture be adapted bottom up rather than top down? And this
Oh, there's a
question is
question.
from Shakti.
Okay,
Thanks for asking, Shakti. Great question.
I'm sorry, I can't see the question.
No, you
Can
can.
you?
Yeah. So I'm going to repeat it again. The question is from Shakti, and the question is, can culture be adapted bottom up instead of top down?
Well, that's a great question, and I, from my experience, it's very difficult because if the
Yeah.
leader is not aligned to a certain culture and certain behavior, it's very difficult for people down the line to do it. Yeah, I have seen examples, amazing examples of what I call them as culture islands. There's
Yeah.
a manager, let's say, builds a different culture in his team, sheer force of individual character, and he does that, and he's able to keep that together with him. But
Yes.
in the general sense, it's not possible to have a bottoms up culture transformation.
There
Thank
is a
you. Thanks.
there's another question. I don't think you can see it, but it's also about having the right set of skills through training and hiring are not timely prioritized. So Arnab is reflecting on the questions on the slide,
Hmm.
and so an observation from his side is apparently that the training component is not really appreciated or timely prioritized, and he would definitely, yeah, well, value or do that differently if he would be in that position. And that's also
Great.
a cultural thing, isn't it? How you train your people and how you prioritize.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So maybe that's a value conflict.
yeah,
You may be perceiving that as something which is important. It's a core value for you, and you feel your organization should be sharing that value with you. But the organizational leadership has a different point of view,
yeah,
and it's a conflict which is not going away. So either
absolutely.
you resolve your values or you influence people around you to change it. Otherwise, it stays with us, and it's normal. I mean, we never align fully to the values of the organization. So there's always that conflict which keeps going. But what is important is that these are cultural elements which impact our productivity. So how
Yeah,
much we can add value to the organization, right?
right. Arnab, thanks
Great.
for your question again. Let's Rajat
Thank you
move to
so much.
the slide, please. Yeah.
Sure. So what constitutes culture? Now, see, we can, yeah, please go, if you can put in the rest of what I, yeah, great, thanks. No, go back. Great. So, see, culture. Now, let's go back a couple of steps and understand what this is. And I'm talking of right now from a perspective of a family, a social group, or an organization. A culture is whenever a set of people come together, there is a need for them to find rules and processes and structures to engage with each other. And this is something which they build up over a period of time. Now, this could be in terms of the way they dress up, the way they talk to each other, the language they use, the words they use, the tone of voice, the non-verbals, the way they manage conflicts, the way they take decisions, the kind of hierarchy they have, and so many other things that they have to bring in so that they can engage with each other. The culture is created essentially so that that group survives and thrives. And it's always created with the best of intentions. And the culture that's created initially is always helping that group because the intention is to help the group grow, right? Now this culture, now as new people come in, there are obviously value conflicts because they come in and they see something which is not aligned to what they feel is right. But that is how the culture keeps evolving. Now, so a culture is eventually, as you see here, is a system of learned behaviors that include values, norms, customs, beliefs, experience, education, and a working language. And you'll find it. So if you go back and see your own workplace, and you just be a little ask questions. I mean, what is the kind of language we use? How do we talk to each other? How formal or informal are we? How do we take decisions? Are the decisions taken verbally or through emails? How do we communicate? Is it more of a email communication, or is it more of verbal? I have worked with an organization where people sitting next to each other used to send emails because there was this cultural value that we need to formalize communication. And I've also seen organizations as a culture coach where decisions could be taken only when you're having lunches together or meals or tea. You could never take decisions through emails. So it's all about how they define the way they don't want to do things. Now, this whole culture thing has two parts to it. There is something that is visible, and which is, as we just mentioned, the kind of dressing, the layout of the way they talk to each other, decision making, conflicts, the reward and punishment, how justice given, what is ignored, what is given priority, the kind of communication that is happening, all that is seen. You can see all that, right? If you are careful, you can make out all that is happening, which is very unique to that organization. And this is above the water. Below the water is the real powerful aspect of culture. And now that is opinions and beliefs. This is essentially of how things are done here. Now, say for example, there is an organization which says we are customer centric. We want to be customer centric. We want to focus on the client. But under the water assumption is that clients are not important. We need to ensure that we take care of our supervisors and keep them happy. The client can come later. Now, if that is an underlying assumption in that organization, then that is different from what is seen upwards. So the underlying assumptions may not match the espoused values, the values that are being spoken of or being communicated out to the outside world. And these are the real powerful things, because they are about what is it I need to do to survive in this organization? What is it that I need to do to succeed in this organization? What is it that will allow me to become a part of the groups in the organization, right? So it's about survival, it's about thrival, it's about growth. So these assumptions are what truly drive the culture of that organization, right? Okay, so moving on, let's move to the next slide. Yeah, so let's go a little deeper here, and let's look at culture in terms of the three different elements as per the Edgar's Keene culture and leadership model, where you have at the top you have the artifacts, which is as we again mentioned, the what all can be clearly seen in terms of how people are engaging with each other. What is the language, communication, how are they sitting, having lunches, informality, formality, the jargon, the symbols, kind of pictures they have on the walls, and what are the kind of acronyms they're using. The rituals. Now, rituals is a huge thing about culture. I mean, what are the things they're doing together when they come in the morning or before they're leaving in the evening? What are the rituals around meetings? Now, meetings are great ways to socialize in organizations. What are the rituals around them? And believe me, as I'm talking to you, go back and think about your workplace. You'll be amazed at noticing all those things which are adding up to the culture in your organization. So these are all the artifacts which can be clearly seen. Then you have the values. Now, values are the aspirations of the organization, because every organization wants to move forward. It wants to become bigger, better, stronger. And it says, hey, this is what I want to be. This is where I want to go. And this drive is the values. It is in the mission, the vision, the communication, the official communication, the public relations communication, the strategy, the goals, everything. That's where the values are coming in. And below that, you have the assumptions. What should be avoided? So, for example, in an organization I'd worked in, it was clear that you should never, ever conflict your boss on a decision in an open meeting. You don't do these things. Otherwise, you are out of the organization in 3 months. It's never written, it's never read out, given out in a rules and procedures of the organization, but it's understood. It's learned through stories. It's learned through mentoring, through informal mentoring of oldies in that organization. In group desired behavior, what do I need to do if I want to be part of this group? So if I'm having meetings and I'm sitting in meetings with people, I shouldn't be getting into talking about certain areas. Otherwise, this group will not call me for meetings again. What is important to survive? I need to keep these 2-3 functions happy if I want to survive in this organization. Maybe I need to keep HR happy. HR is very powerful here, and they decide on who is to stay and not to stay. So let me keep them happy. Now that's an underlying assumption or a learning. How to communicate to get work done. Should I be sending emails? Should I be talking on the phone to get work done? what gets the leadership's attention? No, what is it? I mean, maybe they're talking about client centricity, but what is the leaders gets all angry if there is a delay in a consignment, but he's not very bothered when a client sends a complaint. So, well, I shouldn't be focusing on client complaints. Actually, I should be ensuring that deliveries or consignments happen on time, because that's what the leadership wants. Okay. What prompts rewards or punishment? I mean, what is it that will be rewarded? I want more rewards. I'll focus on what gets me more rewards. So these are the assumptions that are coming in the picture, and that is what impacts the whole organization. So moving on, Dimitri, yeah. So let's look at just a minute. This is, yeah. Okay, let's. I think you put all of them. Sure, sure. Thanks.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, put all of them. Yeah. So let's look at a situation. It's an agile organization, and there is a culture conflict here. So let's start with the espoused values, because that is the drive, the aspiration. That's where they want to go. That is the espoused values is what the organization's leadership clearly sees as what they need to have to grow the organization, to successfully deliver on the strategy, right? So here the espoused values are: we believe in teamwork, people should be empowered, self-organization, and customer-centric, right? But the underlying assumptions haven't changed, because they're still going on for a long time. So we are brilliant alone and idiots together. So I may be put into a team, but actually I should be focusing on my individual work, because that's how I'll be assessed. Or great managers are great leaders. So if somebody is a good manager, is driving, pushing people, and he's not really bringing in leadership skills, fine, he's good as a leader. And internal efficiency comes first. I need to take care of my function, my area. The customer comes later. Now this, because of this, though they are talking about customer centricity, the artifacts or the behavior that you will see will be very interesting. So people will be rewarded individually. They are part of teams, but they're getting promoted or not promoted. Line managers are scrum masters. So any area where you need leadership skills will be given to line managers. I mean, they are the same. They are as good as leaders. And cost control. I mean, I have to keep my internal efficiency comes first. So I can't empower others to decide on expenses. So I'm going to keep a control on these things. So you can see here, and if you believe me, this is something which is happening with us all the time, just that we are not able to decipher it very clearly. But you can see how these things play out for us even in our workplaces, right? Okay, let's move on. Next slide, Dimitri. Now see, yeah, no, go back. Sorry. Yeah, so now see, of course, I'm talking about these things in a very broad level. So there's a lot of detail that goes into this, but diagnosing culture. So when we are into an organization, we're trying to understand what exactly is the culture here. What are the issues, challenges? What are the strengths and weaknesses? The first thing we do is obviously we start listing out and understanding the artifacts. So they are observable, and that's very clear. I mean, you see the way they are behaving with each other and the way they are engaging, taking decisions and all that. Spoused values also to a great extent are understandable. I mean, the mission, vision, they're all over the place. I mean, they are sent in communications and they say, hey, we want to be this, we want to be that, and this. The underlying assumptions are not easy to identify because they're hidden. They are deliberately hidden. Leaders will not talk about them. Some of the time, the leaders are not even aware of them because they feel that they're customer centric, but their behavior is showing up something else. So here what happens is that we'll start looking at the conflicts between the artifacts and the spoused values. So if a client is talking of ethics as a value, but is giving bribes, well, there is a very different underlying assumption at work here, right? So by looking at the conflicts between these two, we start understanding what are the underlying assumptions and where are the conflicts, because these conflicts will pull back the growth of the company. These will cause disengagement, will cause demotivation and attrition of people, right? See, what happens here is that when there is a conflict of these kinds emerging in organizations, people start getting demotivated because you can't manage conflicts. Value conflicts are very difficult to manage. If your boss is saying something and doing something else, you are saying something and having to do something else, it's very difficult to stay engaged. So this is what starts eating into the roots of the organization. So we diagnose the culture, and then let's move to the next slide, Dimitri. And then that is where we bring in the intervention. So even as a coach, we will be learning to become a DevOps coach. And when you, as a coach, you'll be first be doing the diagnosis of the culture and understanding where is the culture coming in and what is it. And then you'll be bringing intervention. Now here, leadership plays a big role. Well, whether you like it or not, the leader is the one who decides the fate of everyone, right? And people are looking up to the leader. The leader likes something, they do it. If doesn't like something, you don't do it. So the leader has to role model. The leader has to communicate and clarity of behavior. Now, clarity of behavior is so important because what happens is that organizations talk of broad values. So it'll say, hey, teamwork. We want to have teamwork, but teamwork can have 10 different meanings for 10 different organizations. So the leader has to be very clear. What does teamwork in terms of behavior mean for us in this organization? And that is what he has to share with his people. So for us in this organization, teamwork means when we sit together and behave like this, we take decisions like this, we manage conflicts like this, right? We progress like this. So that is where leadership, of course, this is a very few, just three very broad points. Leadership has to do many other things, but it kind of gives you a sense of what leadership brings into this whole transformation. The second thing is training. Now here, whenever you're transforming a culture or you're trying to shift a culture, people become anxious because they are being expected to change behavior. So here it's very important to handhold them, to help them understand that it's okay, you can change behavior. It's fine, nothing will happen to you. This is how you do it. So the coaching on the job, mentoring, because coaching is handholding, on the job is helping them, giving them feedback while they're doing it, and mentoring is advising them. So various tools have to be brought in here to help the people shift in their minds from the old behavior to the new behavior. And finally, the magic happens with the social learning, because there is a very big difference between being asked to do something by authority and being influenced by a peer, by a friend, by somebody who's your equal. So for example, it's when they start enjoying talking about that new cultural behavior, when they start enjoying working on a team, when they start enjoying giving more importance to a team than to themselves, when they start enjoying being delegated work, and they're talking about it and competing with each other on that, that is where the social learning starts, and that is where the culture truly takes place. So there are three aspects to this: leadership, training, and social learning, which has to be managed. Of course, there's a lot goes into understanding how to do it, what is the timing, and how do you calibrate all three of them together. But yes, all these three together in a loop will bring about the change in culture. So to give you an example, I know that I've been pushing my children to have their meals on the dining table instead of having it in front of the laptop or in front of the TV. And it's been a long time and it's been a bit of a struggle. But a few years back, when they were in the early teens, one day I realized when my daughter called out to my son and said, "Hey, come on, we have to have a meal. Let's sit on the dining table." And that's when I realized that now the leadership and the training parts are over and the social learning has started. Now they don't need me. They will do it on their own, because that's where the whole cycle will start. So that's how it happens in terms of culture transformation. So moving on, Dimitri, moving to the next slide.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm right now on my second last slide, and let me give you this sense of how a successful DevOps culture will look now. I think this is quite obvious to you now, but here a espoused value would be: we believe in teamwork, we support self-organization, and our focus is customer value. Great. They look very common, they look very similar to what you have in many organizations. But now the difference is in the underlying assumptions. It's that if I want to succeed in this organization, I should work in a team. Only teamwork will deliver. As an individual, I will not be appreciated. Secondly, focus on the client if you want to grow. So if a client is calling up, leave everything, because if you don't do that, you will not be rewarded. You will not be appreciated in this organization. You will not grow. And lastly, respect diversity of perspective. So if somebody is coming with a different point of view, respect it. That is what people like to do here. That is what they do with each other. That's what people have done with me. And I'm hearing stories of how people succeeded and became very big in this organization because they respected diversity. Look at the way this whole thing has worked. Now my whole shift has happened in my mind, and I'm giving a lot of importance to these three things. So now espoused values, cultural underlying assumptions, and the artifacts are obvious for us, because you'll see cross-functional teams, empowered to take decisions, teams are being rewarded, and client is the focus of discussion. So just to give you a sense of how this shifts and how does this add value to you, it basically, everyone is engaged, everyone is productive, uh, decision making, managing of conflicts much faster, the leadership is empowering people, and the organization moving forward much faster and more effectively. So huge impact. We don't realize it. It's like a slow impact, but when it happens, it's huge. So here I'm coming to an end of my presentation. I'll just have the last slide. Dimitri, can we go to the last slide, please?
Yes, there we go.
Yeah. So here we come to the most connect this. So the DevOps coach program actually is one where we will really be talking about culture with you. We'll be helping you to, as a coach, and you're going there. I mean, you could just put DevOps as a methodology. I mean, say, okay, this is a methodology, this is how you do it, value stream mapping, teamwork, whatever. But then as a coach, can you understand the culture? Can you help the leaders to shape the culture? So understanding the elements, structure the successful culture, and what will be your role. So as a coach, you're not a leader, you're not driving it, but you have to be empowering as a catalyst for the leaders to drive it. So what will you do there? That will significantly change the kind of quality that you will bring into that DevOps transformation, right? So that is here. I end my session here. Thank you very much. And I hand it back to Dimitri. Thanks.
Thank you, Rajat. Fantastic. So, before we move to our closing, let me have a look at the clock. It's 10:38. Rajat, fantastic. For all the folks listening in today, today's session was a kind of primer introduction into the cultural elements. And I've been participating in some of the DevOps coach programs and also sat in Rajat's session, and it's a very eye-opening and interesting and engaging thing, which makes you also start thinking in a different way and observing in a different way. So for all of you who would like to know more about that, we also share the upcoming programs. The good thing is, Rajat, so over the course of the webinar, we had more and more folks signing up, majority from India and Asia, but also some of them outside the region. And this makes sense for everyone. But because our prime target audience for this webinar is India, we're also going to invite you to join us on July 18th, because we have a very interesting meetup. We will be together with a large NASA community on the ground, and we had a fantastic and interesting lineup of speakers, which you'll find in the left bottom corner. So please check it out. Keep an eye on your emails. Visit our website and look at the agenda and book it and take some time to join us if you're interested. That's one thing. So the other thing is we are running regular DASA DevOps coach programs, and I think in India, I think we almost run them on a monthly basis. So if you're interested, go to the DASA website, you find the certification on DASA DevOps coach, look at the programs that are running near you, and sign up. We can keep you posted. You will learn more about us, and we are very keen to welcome you as well. If culture is something that is interesting to you, to welcome you to our global network of DASA DevOps coaches, because we're a fast-growing community. We learn, we share, we work with experts like Rajat all over the world, and we welcome you to become a member of that community as well. So, Rajat, thanks a lot, my friend, for joining. It was a real pleasure. So thanks, everyone. I'll leave the floor open for a couple of questions. It's 10:40. That's my time. We have to add 3.5 hours for the India time zone. But we'll be around for a couple of minutes. So if you have any questions or feedback or observations, please share them with us in the question session or the chat session. And for those of you who have to go, some of you are already logging out, and it makes sense. Have a great day. We'll be in touch, and let us know how we can take you to the next level. For those of you who are to stay around and have a question, Rajat and I will be here for the next coming minutes. Thank you. Fantastic. Some of the we're getting some nice feedback. So thanks, guys. Yes. So, Rajat, I suggest that we have still some folks hanging in there, but I don't see any activity on the chat panel. Let's call it a day. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and talk to you soon, Rajat, and to all of you who joined the session. Have a great day, and we'll keep in touch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming over. See you.
Rajat, see you soon. Bye bye.
See you soon. Bye. Bye.